The marble floors of the palace gleamed under my knees as I scrubbed, my hands raw and aching. 3 years I'd worked in the Crimson Moon Palace, invisible among the dozens of servants who kept the Alpha King's domain immaculate. 3 years of keeping my head down, my secret buried deep, and my heart locked away in a cage of necessity and fear. You miss a spot. I didn't need to look up to know who stood above me. Cale Thornwood's voice was like gravel and silk, commanding yet smooth, the kind of voice that made wolves bow and enemies tremble. I kept my eyes fixed on the floor, on the supposedly offending streak of dust. My apologies, Your Majesty. The words tasted like ash. Everything I said to him did. His boots, black leather, always polished perfection, moved closer. I could feel the weight of his gaze on the back of my neck, could sense the predatory stillness that made him the most feared alpha in 5 territories. The Crimson Moon Pack had ruled the northern kingdoms for 3 centuries, and Cale had held his throne for 15 years through sheer dominance and ruthless efficiency. Ilara. The way he said my name made my spine stiffen. He so rarely addressed the servants directly. Look at me. I had no choice. Disobedience meant punishment, and I couldn't afford to draw attention. Slowly, I raised my eyes past the tailored black pants, the silver-buttoned vest, the broad shoulders that carried the weight of an entire kingdom. Finally, I met his gaze. His eyes were molten gold, the mark of the purest alpha bloodline, and they held an intensity that made my wolf whimper inside me. She had been silent for so long, suppressed by the herbs I took daily, hidden beneath layers of carefully constructed weakness. No one here knew what I truly was. No one could ever know. You've been avoiding the Western Wing. It wasn't a question. My heart hammered against my ribs. The Western Wing, where his private chambers resided, where I had once made the greatest mistake of my life. I go where I'm assigned, Your Majesty. Something flickered in those golden eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or suspicion. Then his beta, Marcus, appeared at the far end of the corridor, and the spell broke. Cale turned away without another word, his coat billowing behind him like a dark shadow. I released the breath I'd been holding and returned to my scrubbing, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the brush. That night, I hurried through the servants' entrance and into the cold autumn air, pulling my thin cloak tight around my shoulders. The walk to village was long, but I'd made it every evening for 2 years. My feet knew every stone, every root, every shortcut to the forest that bordered the palace grounds. The cottage was dark when I arrived, but I could hear her singing inside. My chest loosened, and I pushed open the door. Mama! A tiny figure launched herself at my legs, all wild dark curls and bright laughter. I scooped Ari into my arms, breathing in her scent, milk and honey and something wild underneath, something that grew stronger every day. Hello, my little moon. Were you good for Clara? She's always good, Clara said, emerging from the kitchen with a warm smile. She was an elderly wolf, cast out from her pack decades ago for refusing an alpha's advances. She understood the need for secrets, though I think her teeth are coming in stronger. She bit through a wooden spoon today. My stomach dropped. Her teeth? Claire's expression turned serious, and she nodded toward Aria's mouth. When my daughter smiled, I saw them. Canines just slightly too sharp, growing more pronounced by the day. She was only 2 years old. Werewolf children didn't show their wolf characteristics until at least 5, sometimes later, unless they carried alpha blood, unless their father was one of the most powerful alphas alive. You need to give her more of the suppressant, Clara whispered. And soon, you'll need to decide what you're going to do. She can't hide forever. Ilara, neither can you. I held Aria tighter, feeling the steady beat of her heart against mine. I had known this day would come, had dreaded it with every fiber of my being. But I had hoped for more time. Always more time. I'll figure something out, I said, but the words rang hollow. That night, after Aria fell asleep in our small bed, I sat by the fire and let myself remember. Let myself go back to that night 3 years ago, the night that had changed everything. I hadn't always been a servant. Once, I'd been a Lara Moon Whisperer, daughter of the Silver Veil Pack's Alpha, promised to the Thornwood King as part of a peace treaty between our territories. I'd arrive at the palace with hope in my heart, believing the stories about political marriages that bloomed into love. I'd been naive. Kale had taken one look at me and declared the treaty null. My pack was too weak, he'd said, my bloodline too thin. I wasn't worthy to be his queen, to bear his heirs. The rejection had been public, humiliating, absolute. My father had been forced to concede, but the shame had been unbearable. Rather than return home in disgrace, I'd begged to stay on as a servant. At least here, I'd thought, I could keep my dignity. At least here, I wouldn't have to face my family's disappointment every day. For months, I'd scrubbed floors and washed linens, invisible and ignored. I'd taken herbs that suppressed my wolf, making me appear weaker than I was, ensuring no one would question why an alpha's daughter worked as a maid. I'd built a new life from the ashes of the old one. And then came the night of the blood moon. The pull of the moon affected all wolves, but alphas felt it most keenly. The palace had been locked down, servants dismissed to their quarters, but I'd been caught in the western wing when the moon rose. I'd heard the howl, primal, desperate, full of need, and my wolf had answered before I could stop her. I'd found him in his chambers, half-shifted, his humanity warring with his beast. The blood moon demanded a mate, and his wolf had caught my scent. Later, I would understand that my suppressants had worn off, that my true scent had called to him. But in that moment, there had been no thought, no reason, only fire and need, and the inevitable collision of two souls. I'd left before dawn, slipped away while he slept, and immediately doubled my suppressants. When I discovered weeks later that I was pregnant, I'd known I could never tell him. He'd rejected me once. He'd made it clear I wasn't good enough, and his heir, born to a servant rather than a queen, would be seen as an abomination, a threat to his carefully constructed power. So I'd hidden it. I'd used every herb, every charm, every trick Clara taught me to conceal the pregnancy. I'd worked until the last possible moment, then disappeared for 3 months, claiming a sick relative in a distant village. I'd returned with Arya hidden away, my secret buried deep. For 2 years, it had worked. But now, looking at my daughter's sharpening teeth, her eyes that sometimes flashed gold in the firelight, I knew our time was running out. The summons came 3 days later. The Alpha King requests your presence in his study. Immediately, the head housekeeper's expression was pinched, her tone sharp with disapproval. Being singled out by the king was never good for a servant. My legs nearly gave out as I climbed the stairs to the private wing. I'd successfully avoided this area for years, but there was no refusing a direct summons. The study doors were massive oak, carved with wolves in various poses of dominance. I knocked, my hand trembling. Enter. He stood by the window, silhouetted against the afternoon light. For a moment, I could only stare at the powerful line of his shoulders, the dark hair that curled slightly at his neck, the absolute stillness that marked him as a predator. "You asked to see me, Your Majesty?" He turned, and the light caught his face. Even after all this time, after everything, my traitorous heart still stuttered at the sight of him. He was beautiful in the way that dangerous things were, sharp edges and dark promises. 3 years ago, he said, his voice carefully neutral. On the night of the blood moon, I woke alone in my bed with only a scent to tell me I hadn't dreamed the entire encounter. The floor tilted beneath my feet. "Your Majesty, I've searched for that scent every day since." He moved closer, each step deliberate. "I've brought in wolves from every pack, hoping to find her, my mate, the one who disappeared like smoke." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "I don't understand why you're telling me this." "Don't you?" He was close enough now that I could see the gold flecks in his eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I caught your scent today, Ilara. Really caught it. For the first time since you've worked here. Your suppressants are failing." The room spun. 3 years of carefully maintained lies, crumbling in an instant. "I should have recognized you that night," he continued, his voice dropping to something dark and dangerous. "Should have known, even through the haze of the moon. But you'd masked yourself so completely, made yourself so invisible." His hand lifted, and I flinched, but he only brushed a strand of hair from my face. "Why did you run?" The gentleness in the gesture undid me more than anger would have. You rejected me. I whispered. You said I wasn't worthy. Something like pain flashed across his face. I was a fool. You were honest. The words were bitter. I wasn't good enough to be your queen. I understood that. But when the moon rose, when your wolf called to mine, I broke off, shaking my head. It was a mistake. The blood moon makes us all do things we wouldn't otherwise. Is that what you think? His voice was soft, deadly. That you were just a convenient body during the moon's pull? I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze despite the fear coursing through me. What else could I be to you? He stared at me for a long moment, and I watched emotions flicker across his face. Anger, frustration, something that looked almost like regret. Finally, he stepped back, and I could breathe again. You're dismissed. For now. The words were clipped. But Alara, this conversation isn't over. I fled before he could say anything else, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. That night, I held Arya and tried to figure out what to do. Running would be suspicious now, would only confirm his suspicions. But staying meant the inevitable discovery. It was only a matter of time before he put the pieces together, before he realized the timeline, before he demanded to know if there had been any consequences from that night. Mama said. Arya's small hand patted my cheek, her golden eyes, so like his, filled with concern. No, little moon. Mama's fine. The lie tasted like poison. Clara watched us from her chair by the fire. You have to tell him. I can't. He'll find out anyway. Better it comes from you. I shook my head violently. You don't understand. He'll take her from me. Alpha heirs belong to the pack. To the kingdom. I'll lose her. You'll lose her anyway if you keep running. Clara's voice was gentle but firm. And she deserves to know her father. He deserves to know he has a daughter. He gave up that right when he rejected me. Did he? Clara leaned forward. From what you've told me, he's been searching for you for 3 years. That doesn't sound like a man who considers you a mistake. I wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled at my bones. I was so tired of hiding, of lying, of living in constant fear. But the alternative, facing Cale, telling him about Arya, risking everything, terrified me more. The decision was taken from my hands 2 days later. I was in the market, Arya bundled in my cloak, when the crowd suddenly parted. Palace guards moved through like a knife through butter, and in their center walked Cale, flanked by Marcus and 2 other betas. I tried to disappear into the crowd, but Arya chose that moment to squirm free from my cloak, her dark curls bouncing as she toddled to her merchant's colorful display. Arya, no! I lunged after her, catching her just as she reached for a glass ornament, and that's when I saw him watching us. Cale had frozen mid-step, his eyes locked on Arya. Even from 15 feet away, I could see the moment he registered her features. The sharp little chin that mirrored his, the golden eyes that no common wolf possessed, the wild dark hair that matched his own. Time slowed to a crawl. I watched his face transform from shock to disbelief to dawning realization. His beta said something, but Cale didn't respond, didn't move, his entire focus on the little girl in my arms. Arya, feeling his gaze, turned to look at him, and smiled. It was like watching 2 magnets pull together. Cale moved forward unconsciously, his hand outstretched, and Arya reached for him with that fearless curiosity that terrified me daily. No. I pulled her back, holding her tight against my chest. We need to go. Alara. My name was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of command. Don't run. But I was already moving, pushing through the crowd, my heart hammering in my ears. I heard him shout something, heard the guards mobilizing, but I knew these streets better than they did. I ducked down an alley, through a garden, over a wall, taking every shortcut I knew. I made it to Clara's cottage and burst through the door, gasping for breath. What happened? Clara took one look at my face and pulled us both inside, barring the door. He saw her. He knows. I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Clara, what do I do? She gripped my shoulders. You face this. You stop running. I can't lose her. You won't. but you need to be smart about this. She took Arya from my arms, settling a confused toddler on the floor with some wooden toys. Cale Thornwood is many things, but he's not cruel. He won't take a child from her mother without cause. His heir is also your daughter. You have rights too. Illyra, you're not the weak, rejected girl anymore. You're a mother. You're a wolf. Fight for her. The knock came before I could respond. Heavy, authoritative, inevitable. Clara opened the door to reveal Cale and Marcus, the Alpha King filling the doorway with his presence. His eyes found Arya immediately, and I watched his jaw tighten, his hands clench at his sides. How old is she? His voice was rough. I lifted my chin. 2 years. 3 months. He did the math quickly, his eyes closing briefly. The blood moon. Yes, you hid my daughter from me for over 2 years. It wasn't quite a question, but the anger simmering beneath the surface was unmistakable. I protected her from being used as a political pawn in your games of power. His eyes snapped to mine, gold fire burning in their depths. Is that truly what you think of me? I think you made it very clear that I wasn't suitable to be in your life. Why would our daughter be any different? The words hung in the air between us, sharp and cutting. Cale looked like I'd slapped him, and Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside him. Arya, oblivious of the tension, toddled over to Cale and tugged on his pant leg. Up! He stared down at her, and I watched his expression crack, revealing something raw underneath. Slowly, as if afraid she might disappear, he knelt down to her level. Hello, little one. His voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. Arya studied him with serious eyes, then reached out and patted his face. Sad man. A choked sound escaped him, something between a laugh and a sob. Maybe a little. No sad. See? She smiled at him, showing those 2 sharp teeth, and his hand trembled as he touched her wild curls. She looks like you, he murmured, glancing up at me, but she has my eyes. I know. He stood slowly, lifting Arya with him, and she settled against his chest like she belonged there. The sight made my heart ache. We need to talk. Really talk. No more running. Illyra. I wanted to refuse, wanted to snatch Arya and disappear into the night. But Clara was right. Running would only delay the inevitable. And watching Cale hold our daughter, seeing the wonder and pain warring on his face, I realized he'd been robbed too. I'd made decisions that affected all of us, driven by fear and hurt pride. All right, I said finally, we'll talk. We returned to the palace after dark, entering through a private entrance to avoid curious eyes. Cale led us to his personal chambers, the same rooms where Arya had been conceived, and the memories nearly choked me. He settled Arya on a plush rug with some cushions, and she immediately began exploring, touching everything with curious hands. He watched her with an intensity that made my chest tight. Why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. After you discovered you were pregnant, why didn't you come to me? You rejected me, Cale. Publicly. Cruelly. You said my bloodline was too weak, that I wasn't worthy to stand beside you. The old wounds opened fresh and bleeding. Why would I think you want a child with me? Because she's mine. The possessiveness in his voice made my wolf stir. Because any child of my blood would be wanted, regardless of the mother. The words stung more than they should have. So you had taken her and cast me aside? He broke off, running a hand through his hair in frustration. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done. But I should have had the chance to decide. You took that from me. And you took my dignity when you rejected me in front of both our packs. My voice cracked. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I was 18 years old, sent to marry a stranger as part of a treaty, and you looked at me like I was nothing, like I was beneath your notice. I was trying to protect you. The words were so unexpected, so quiet, that I thought I had misheard. What? Cale turned to face me fully, and for the first time, I saw past the Alpha King to the man underneath. My enemies were circling. There were 3 attempts on my life that year alone. My father had just died, and the pack was fractured. I needed a queen who could defend herself, who could rule if something happened to me. You were so young, so innocent, and your wolf was weak. I finished bitterly. I know. Hidden, he corrected. Even then, I sensed you were hiding something, suppressing your true nature. But I didn't know why, and I couldn't risk bringing someone into my life who might be a spy or a liability. So I rejected you publicly, brutally, hoping you'd return to your pack where you'd be safe. I stared at him, my world tilting. You're saying you rejected me to protect me? It was a mistake. His voice was raw. I realized it within weeks, but by then you disappeared into the servant ranks, and every time I tried to seek you out, you'd vanished. I thought perhaps you'd left, gone back to Silvervale. And then that night, during the blood moon, he stopped, his eyes finding mine. My wolf knew you. Even through the suppressants, even through the disguise, some part of me recognized you, and I've been searching ever since. The room felt too small, the air too thick. You're trying to tell me that you wanted me, even after the rejection? I'm telling you that I never stopped wanting you. That night haunted me. Ilara, you haunted me. He moved closer, and I found myself unable to retreat. I knew I'd found something precious, something real, and I'd lost it before I could even understand what it meant. But I wasn't good enough. You were always good enough. I was the one who wasn't. I was a coward who hid behind politics and pride instead of fighting for what I wanted. His hand lifted, cupping my face with a gentleness that made tears prick my eyes. And now I discover I have a daughter, that you've been here all along, raising my child alone, struggling because of my mistakes. I didn't do it to punish you, I whispered. I did it to protect her, to protect myself. I know. His thumb brushed away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. And I understand. But things have to change now. Ilara, I won't be shut out of her life. I won't lose either of you again. The word should have frightened me, but instead, I felt something loosening in my chest, a knot I'd carried for years, finally beginning to unravel. What are you proposing? Move into the palace. Both of you, not as servants, but as... He hesitated, as part of my household. Give me a chance to know her, to be her father, and give me a chance to prove that I'm not the man who rejected you 3 years ago. And if I refuse, his jaw tightened. I won't force you. I have the power to claim her as my heir, to take her by law, but I won't. She needs her mother. I see that. He glanced at Arya, who had fallen asleep among the cushions, her small body curled like a puppy. But please don't shut me out. Let me try to make this right. I looked at my daughter, at the man who had given her life, at the impossible situation we'd found ourselves in. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to protect the life we'd built. But Clara's words echoed in my mind. She deserves to know her father. And perhaps, despite everything, so did I. All right, I said finally, but I have conditions. Relief flooded his features. Name them. Arya stays with me. Always. I won't be separated from her, not even for pack duties or training or whatever you plan. Agreed. No one can know she's your daughter. Not yet. Not until we figure out how to handle this politically. The moment the pack knows you have an heir, she becomes a target. He frowned at that, but nodded slowly. We'll keep it quiet for now. But eventually we'll deal with it. But not today. I took a breath. And Kale, if you ever try to take her from me, if you ever use her as a political tool or put your ambitions above her well-being, I will disappear in a way you'll never find us. Do you understand? The threat would have been laughable coming from a servant, but something in my voice must have convinced him I meant it. His eyes narrowed slightly, reassessing me. I understand. And Ilara, I have a condition of my own. What? Stop taking the suppressants. Stop hiding your wolf. I want to know who you really are. The request sent fear spiking through me. My wolf had been buried for so long, I wasn't sure what would happen if I let her free. But looking at Arya, at how strong her wolf was already, I realized she would need a mother who could teach her, who could show her what it meant to be a wolf. All right, I whispered. I'll try. The next weeks passed in a strange, dreamlike quality. True to his word, Kale had us moved into a suite in the family wing. Not his chambers, but close enough that he could visit daily. Arya adapted with the resilience of childhood, delighted by the bigger space and the fancy toys that began appearing. Kale was patient with her, taking time from his duties to play, to read stories, to simply sit and watch her with an expression of wonder that never faded. He was gentle and careful, learning her preferences, her fears, her joys. And slowly, painfully, I watched my daughter fall in love with her father. It terrified me and healed something I hadn't known was broken. Stopping the suppressants was harder, without the herbs dampening her. My wolf stirred restlessly, angry at being caged for so long. I had headaches, mood swings, moments where my eyes flashed gold and my teeth sharpened involuntarily. "It's normal," Kale assured me one evening, finding me on the balcony, gripping the railing as another wave of transformation threatened. "Your wolf is reasserting herself. Just breathe through it. Easy for you to say." I gasped. "You've never suppressed yours." "No, but I've watched other wolves come back from it. It gets easier." He stood behind me, and I felt his presence like a warm wall at my back. Slowly, carefully, he placed his hands over mine on the railing. His touch sent electricity through me, and my wolf responded, rising to meet his. "Let her out," he murmured against my ear. "Just a little. Let me meet her properly." I wanted to resist, but my control was fraying. With a shuddering breath, I released the leash I had kept on my wolf for years. The transformation rippled through me, not a full shift, but a partial one. My nails lengthened into claws, my teeth sharpened, my senses exploded with new information. And my scent, my true scent, flooded the air. Kale's hands tightened on mine, and I heard his sharp intake of breath. "Ilara, I know." My voice came out rougher, layered with the wolf. "I'm not weak. I never was." "You're an alpha." There was awe in his voice. How did I not realize? Because I was very good at hiding. I turned to face him, and his eyes widened at whatever he saw in my face. My father was Alpha of Silvervale, but my mother was the daughter of the Shadow Ridge Alpha. I carried 2 Alpha bloodlines. When I was young, some of the pack saw me as a threat. Too much power in one so young. My father taught me to hide it, to seem weak, to survive. And when you came here, I was already used to pretending. It was easy to continue. I felt my wolf pushing, wanted to challenge him, to see if he was truly strong enough to be our mate. But now she's awake, Kale, and she's not going back in a cage. Something dangerous and hungry flashed in his eyes. Good. He moved closer, crowded me against the railing, and my wolf rose to meet his challenge. For a moment, we stood there, 2 alphas locked in a silent battle of wills. The air between us crackled with power and tension, and something darker, hotter. Then Arya's cry broke the moment. She was having a nightmare, her small voice calling for me. I pulled away, my wolf retreating, and hurried inside. But I felt Kale's eyes on me, felt the shift in the dynamic between us. Things had changed, and there was no going back. The following morning, Marcus cornered me in the hallway. The beta had been polite but distant since we'd moved in, and I'd kept my distance in return. "We need to talk," he said, gesturing to an empty room. Inside, he closed the door and turned to face me with a serious expression. "You need to understand something about Kale, about what the last 3 years have been like for him." I crossed my arms defensively. "I'm not sure I want to hear this from you." "Too bad. You need to hear it." Marcus leaned against the wall. After that blood moon, after he realized his mate had disappeared, he became obsessed. He searched everywhere, brought in trackers, offered rewards. He turned down every alliance that required a marriage pact. Do you know how many packs have wanted to ally with the Crimson Moon? How many high-born females have been paraded before him? That's not my concern. He refused them all, every single one, because his wolf had chosen, and he couldn't settle for anything less. Marcus's voice softened. "I've known Kale since we were boys. I've never seen him the way he was after you left. It broke something in him. Guilt twisted in my stomach. I didn't know. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you because you need to understand what you mean to him, and because I need to know your intentions." I met his gaze steadily. My intentions are to protect my daughter. And Kale? The question hung in the air. What were my intentions toward Kale? I'd hated him for so long, blamed him for my suffering. But seeing him with Arya, learning the truth about the rejection, feeling my wolf's response to his, everything had become complicated. I don't know, I admitted. I'm trying to figure that out. Marcus nodded slowly. Fair enough, but understand this. He's not going to let you go again. Wolf or no wolf, alpha blood or servant, you're his mate. His wolf decided that 3 years ago. And now that he has you back, along with his daughter, he shook his head. Be careful, Alara. Be clear about what you want. Because Kale will fight for you, but he needs to know you'll fight for him too. After Marcus left, I stood alone in the empty room, my mind churning. Fight for Kale? I'd spent 3 years running from him, hiding from him, hating him. The idea of fighting for him felt impossible. But my wolf disagreed. She was awake now, strong and sure, and she knew what she wanted. She wanted her mate. She wanted to submit to his strength and challenge him in equal measure. She wanted to stand beside him as an equal, not hide in the shadows. The question was, could I overcome 3 years of fear and hurt to let her have what she wanted? That night, Kale came to read Arya her bedtime story as it became his routine. I watched from the doorway as he settled her in bed, his large frame gentle with her small one. She made him read her favorite story 3 times, and he did it without complaint, his deep voice steady and soothing. Finally, she fell asleep, and he carefully extracted himself from her bed. We stood together in the doorway, watching her sleep. She's perfect, he murmured. Yes. Thank you for letting me be part of her life. I know it wasn't easy for you. I glanced at him, seeing the sincerity in his face. You're a good father, Kale. Better than I expected. High praise from you, he said with a slight smile. We moved to the sitting room, and I poured us both some wine. We'd been dancing around each other for weeks now, polite and careful, but the tension was building. My wolf wanted resolution one way or another. Marcus spoke to me today. I said, settling into a chair. He told me about the last 3 years, about how you searched for me. Kale's expression shuddered. He talks too much. Why didn't you tell me yourself? Would you have believed me? He moved to the window, looking out at the moon, not quite full, but growing. You were so convinced I was the monster from your nightmares, the cruel king who rejected you. How could I explain that I've been half-mad looking for you, that my wolf has been howling for his mate every night? The raw admission made my breath catch. Kale, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know I destroyed any chance I had 3 years ago. But Alara, he turned to face me, and the vulnerability in his eyes made my chest ache. I'm asking anyway. Give me a real chance. Not just for Arya's sake, but for us. Let me court you properly. Let me prove that we could be something together. Everything in me wanted to say yes, but fear held me back. What if it doesn't work? What if we try and fail? Arya would be caught in the middle. We won't fail. The certainty in his voice was absolute. I've spent 3 years looking for you, Alara. I'm not going to lose you again. And my wolf, his eyes flashed gold. My wolf chose you for a reason. Trust that, even if you can't trust me yet. I wanted to. Oh, how I wanted to. But the scared 18-year-old girl who'd been rejected still lived inside me, and she whispered warnings about pain and heartbreak. I need time, I said finally, to think, to understand what I want, not just what my wolf wants. Disappointment flickered across his face, but he nodded. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. The decision was made for me a week later, when an envoy arrived from the Eastern Territories. They requested an audience with the Alpha King regarding a matter of urgent political importance. I was in the library with Arya when Marcus found me. Kale wants to see you. Immediately. The tone sent alarm bells ringing. What's wrong? Just come. In Kale's office, I found him pacing like a caged animal. His control was slipping, his wolf too close to the surface. The moment I entered, his eyes locked on me. The Eastern Territories know about Arya, he said without preamble. The world tilted. How? Someone saw us in the market, put the pieces together. Now they're demanding I acknowledge her as my heir, and that I take a proper queen. They're threatening to break the peace accords if I don't legitimize my bloodline within the month. My stomach dropped. They want you to marry. They want me to secure the succession. They're worried that without a clear line of inheritance, the kingdom will fracture when I die. Other packs will make claims. There will be war. He stopped pacing to face me. They're not wrong to be concerned. Arya needs to be protected, officially recognized. But that means revealing her, making her a target. I felt sick. This is exactly what I was afraid of. I know. His voice was rough with frustration. But we're out of options. If I don't act, if I don't secure the succession, the Eastern territories will withdraw from the alliance. Other packs will follow. Everything my father and grandfather built will crumble. So what are you saying? He moved closer, and I saw the conflict in his eyes. I'm saying I need to take a queen. Publicly, officially. Someone who can stand beside me, who can protect Arya if something happens to me, who can rule. The words felt like knives. I see. So you'll marry some high-born alpha female. And what? Expect me to stay here and watch? To raise your daughter while your wife plays queen. No. The word was sharp, definitive. That's not what I'm saying at all. Then what? Marry me, Alara. The room fell silent. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. You're insane? I whispered. Probably. A muscle ticked in his jaw. But you're the mother of my child. You're an alpha in your own right. You have the bloodline, the strength. And you're my mate. My wolf claimed you 3 years ago, and that hasn't changed. If I have to take a queen to satisfy the other packs, then let it be you. Let it be the one I actually want. I was already rejected as not good enough. That was before they knew about Arya. Before they knew you carried alpha blood. Before, he broke off, running a hand through his hair. Everything has changed. Alara, I can present you now not as the weak daughter of a minor pack, but as the mother of my heir, an alpha female with dual bloodlines. No one will question it. Everyone will question it. I countered. I was a servant. I've been living here in secret. They'll call Arya a bastard. They'll say I trapped you. Let them say what they want. My wolf chose you. That's all that matters in our world. He closed the distance between us, cupping my face in his hands. I know I'm asking a lot. I know you have every reason to refuse. But Alara, I swear to you, I will spend the rest of my life making up for that rejection. I will prove that you are exactly who I need beside me. Please, give us this chance. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was everything I'd once dreamed of, and everything I'd learned to stop hoping for. To be his queen, to stand at his side, to give Arya protection of legitimacy. It was more than I'd ever dared imagine. But it also meant trusting him, trusting that he wouldn't break me again. I need to think, I said, pulling away from his touch. This is too important to decide in a moment of panic. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. The envoy expects an answer by tomorrow evening. We're hosting a formal dinner. They want to meet with me about the alliance terms. He hesitated. You should know. They brought several high-born females with them. Potential queen candidates, in case I refuse to claim a mate. Jealousy, sharp and unexpected, lanced through me. My wolf snarled at the thought of other females near our mate. I see, I managed. You have options, then. I have one option that matters. His eyes burned into mine. I'll wait for your answer, Alara. But know this, those females mean nothing to me. They never have. There's only ever been you. I left before I could do something foolish like believe him completely. That night, I sat with Clara in her cottage while Arya slept upstairs. I'd told her everything, and now she watched me with those knowing eyes. So the question is, she said finally, do you trust him? I don't know. Then ask yourself this. What does your wolf say? I closed my eyes, reaching for that part of me that had been silent for so long. My wolf was awake now, strong and clear, and she had no doubts whatsoever. She wanted Kale, wanted to stand beside him, to match his strength with her own, to build a life together. My wolf trusts him. I admitted, and you? That was harder. My wolf operated on instinct, on the deep primal bond between mates. But I was human, too, with human fears and human memories of pain. He hurt me, I whispered. That rejection nearly destroyed me, Clara. What if he does it again? What if I'm not enough, not really? Oh, child. Clara reached for my hand. You're asking the wrong questions. Don't ask if you're enough for him. Ask if he's enough for you. Ask if he's strong enough to stand beside an alpha female who's been hiding her true power for years. Ask if he can handle a woman who won't just submit and obey. The word struck something deep inside me. I'd been so focused on my own inadequacy that I hadn't considered it from the other direction. Cale had fallen for me during the blood moon when I was suppressed, hidden a shadow of my true self. But now my wolf was free, growing stronger every day. Would he still want me when I was fully myself? When I challenged him, when I refused to be compliant? There's only one way to find out, Clara said, reading my thoughts. Take the risk, Ilara. Let yourself be seen completely. If he can't handle it, better to know now than after years of hiding pieces of yourself. She was right. I'd spent 3 years hiding from Cale, hiding from myself. Maybe it was time to stop running. The next evening, I dressed carefully for formal dinner, not in servant's clothes or even the modest dresses I'd been wearing since moving to the family wing. Instead, I wore a gown of deep midnight blue that Marcus had somehow procured, fitted elegant, the kind of thing an alpha female would wear. I let my hair fall loose instead of tying it back, and for the first time in years, I walked into a formal room without trying to disappear. The great hall fell silent as I entered. Cale stood near the head of the table, the envoy from the Eastern Territories beside him, and scattered around with the potential candidates, 3 beautiful, high-born females who watched me with curiosity and thinly veiled hostility. But I only had eyes for Cale. He'd gone completely still, his gaze locked on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. I saw his nostrils flare as he caught my scent, no longer suppressed, no longer hidden, and his eyes flashed gold. I crossed the room with my head high, every inch the alpha's daughter I'd been born as. When I reached him, I didn't bow or curtsy. I met his gaze as an equal. Your Majesty, I said, my voice steady. I believe you were expecting an answer from me. His voice was rough, barely controlled. I was aware of everyone watching, of the weight of this moment. This would change everything, irreversibly. But Clara was right. No more hiding. No more half-truths. Then my answer is yes. A collective gasp rippled through the room. The envoy's eyes widened. The potential candidates looked shocked and offended. But Cale smiled, a real smile that transformed his face from austere to devastating. Yes, he repeated, as if he needed to hear it again. Yes, I'll marry you. I held his gaze. On one condition. His smile faltered slightly. What condition? That you see me, really see me, not the weak rejected girl, not the servant, not even just the mother of your child. See me as I truly am, an alpha female with her own power, her own will, her own strength, and understand that I won't be a decorative queen who sits silently by your side. If you want me, you get all of me, the good and the difficult. The room was utterly silent. I just challenged the Alpha King publicly, asserted my own dominance in front of foreign dignitaries and rivals. It was bold to the point of recklessness. But Cale's smile returned, wider than before, with an edge of feral approval. I wouldn't want you any other way. Then, before I could react, he pulled me to him and kissed me. It was nothing like the desperate, moon-crazed union 3 years ago. This was acclaiming, pure and simple. His mouth was demanding on mine, his hands possessive on my waist, his wolf rising to meet mine in a challenge and acceptance all at once. I felt the bond between us snap into place, solid and unbreakable, recognized finally by both our human and wolf selves. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, the entire room was staring. This is Ilara Moon Whisper, Cale announced, his voice carrying through the hall. Daughter of 2 alpha bloodlines, mother of my heir and my chosen queen. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. The threat was clear. The envoy from the Eastern Territories looked between us, then slowly smiled. Well, this is unexpected, but I suppose it solves our concerns about the succession. He bowed slightly to me. My lady, may your union be strong. The potential candidates looked less pleased, but they wisely kept their mouths shut. You didn't challenge an alpha king who just made a public claim. The dinner that followed was a blur. I sat beside Cale at the head of the table, fielding questions from curious dignitaries, accepting congratulations that ranged from sincere to thinly veiled jealousy. Cale kept his hand on mine the entire time, a constant point of contact that soothed my nerves and made my wolf purr with satisfaction. When the evening finally ended and the guests retired, Cale led me to his private study. Inside, away from prying eyes, the careful control he'd maintained all evening cracked. "Do you have any idea what you did to me?" he demanded, backing me against the door. Walking in there looking like that, smelling like that, challenging me in front of everyone. "I told you," I said, meeting his intense gaze. "You get all of me or nothing." "I want all of you." His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back. "I want every challenge, every argument, every moment where you push back and make me work for it. I don't want some submissive queen who'll agree with everything I say. I want you, Ilera, exactly as you are." The words broke something open inside me, some last wall I've been keeping in place. "I'm scared," I admitted, "scared of trusting you, scared of being hurt again." "I know." His forehead rested against mine. "And I'll spend every day earning your trust. I'll prove that I'm worthy of you, of Arya, of this second chance. I swear it." I believed him. Finally, completely, I believed him. The wedding was planned to the new moon, traditionally a time for new beginnings. The month leading up to it was chaos. Delegations from every major pack arrived to witness the union. My father came from Silvervale, shocked and pleased to see his daughter risen from servant to queen. Arya was officially presented to the pack as the Alpha's heir, and while there were whispers about the circumstances of her birth, no one dared voice them publicly. Cale was true to his word. He courted me properly, taking time away from his duties to walk with me in the gardens, to talk for hours about everything and nothing. He listened when I spoke about pack politics, even implemented some of my suggestions. He trained with me in the practice ring, delighted when I could actually match him move for move. "You've been holding back," he accused one day after I'd nearly taken him down. "I've been hiding," I corrected. "There's a difference." He'd kissed me then, hard and possessive, and my wolf had gloried in it. Arya adapted to her new life with the resilience of childhood. She called Cale Papa now, and the joy in his face every time she said it never faded. He was patient with her, teaching her about her wolf, about her heritage, about the responsibilities that would one day be hers. The night before the wedding, Clara came to my chambers to help me prepare. "You're sure about this?" she asked as she brushed my hair. "I'm terrified," I admitted, "but yes, I'm sure." "Good, because that man loves you, Ilera. I see it in the way he looks at you, the way he orbits around you and Arya. You're his world." "And he's become mine," I said softly. "When did that happen?" "The moment you stopped fighting it." Clara smiled. "Now get some rest. Tomorrow you become a queen." The ceremony was held under the stars, as was traditional for wolf matings. I wore white and silver, with moonflowers woven into my hair. As I walked down the aisle between rows of watching pack members, I saw Cale waiting for me at the altar, dressed in formal black with the crimson moon sigil on his chest. His eyes never left mine as I approached, and when I took his hands, I felt the rightness of it settle into my bones. The pack elder performed the ceremony, binding our wrists with silver cord and calling on the moon to witness our union. We spoke the ancient vows, promising to honor, protect, and cherish each other, to lead the pack together, to be partners in all things. When it came time for the final vow, the one that would bind us irrevocably, Cale added words of his own. "I vow to spend every day earning your trust," he said, his voice carrying through the clearing. "To never take you for granted. To stand beside you as an equal. To challenge you and be challenged in return. You are my mate, my queen, and my partner. From this night forward, Your enemies are my enemies. Your joys are my joys. Your battles are my battles. I am yours, Ilara, as you are mine. Tears streamed down my face as I repeated the vows with my own additions. I vow to trust you, to stand with you even when it's hard, to be the queen our pack needs and the mate your wolf chose. I vow to never hide from you again, to show you all of me, the strength and the weakness, the light and the dark. I am yours, Kel, now and always. The elder completed the binding, and we sealed our union with a kiss that felt like coming home. The pack howled their approval, and the sound echoed through the forest, announcing to all the territories that the Crimson Moon Pack had a queen. That night, alone in our chambers, Kale pulled me close and simply held me. No demands, no urgency, just the solid comfort of his presence. "Thank you," he murmured into my hair. "For what?" "For giving me another chance. For trusting me with our daughter. For becoming my queen." He pulled back to look at me. "For letting me prove that you were always enough. More than enough." I kissed him then, pouring 3 years of pain and fear and hope into it. And when he lifted me and carried me to bed, when we finally came together as mates properly bonded, it was nothing like that desperate night under the blood moon. This was better. This was choice and trust and love. This was everything. Months passed, and I grew into my role as queen. I learned the politics, earned the respect of the pack, and stood beside Kale as an equal partner. There were challenges, there always would be, but we faced them together. Arya thrived, growing stronger and more confident every day. She would be a formidable alpha one day, carrying the best of both our bloodlines. One evening, as I stood on the balcony watching the sunset, Kale came to stand behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how different my life is from what I imagined 3 years ago." I leaned back against his chest. "When I was scrubbing floors and hiding who I was, I never dreamed I could have this. You, Arya, this life. I was lost without you," he admitted. "I just didn't know it until I found you. Or rather, until you found the courage to let yourself be found." I turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd gone from my greatest fear to my greatest love. "No more hiding," I promised. "No more hiding," he agreed. "Just us, building the future together." As the moon rose over the Crimson Moon Palace, I felt the rightness of it all. The pain of the past had shaped us, but it didn't define us. What defined us was a choice we made every day to trust, to love, to stand together against whatever came. I was no longer the rejected girl or the hiding servant. I was Ilara Thornwood, queen of the Crimson Moon Pack, mate to the Alpha King, and mother to the future of our people. And I was finally completely home.